I'm Tim, welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Breitling Chronomat Evolution chronograph, 44mm in polished stainless steel. This Chronomat Evolution is available for purchase on our website, watchyouwant.com, and if you like these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now, the Chronomat Evolution is the follow-up to the early 80s watch that saved Breitling, the original Chronomat. Before I get too deep into the history, I want to talk about the fit and the feel, because that always comes first. My wrist is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. This is a modern, oversized sports watch. Now you can see it's 44mm in diameter, but the case projects beyond that, and at 17mm thick, this one's going to be a challenge to slip under a dress cuff. However, it does have a little bit of a rounded case flank and a little bit of a step to its bezel, so it's not a lost cause, and with an elegant dark dial and white metal combination, it's definitely versatile from an aesthetic standpoint. Now, the nice thing about this watch is that even though it is oversized, a very modern watch, the Evolution debuted in 2004 as a follow-up to the original Chronomat, but you can see that the lugs are pared down, so the case is big but the lugs are short. So even though my wrist is undersized by the standards of most guys, the lugs don't actually overhang the edges of my wrist, and you can see that I've got plenty of clearance on both sides. It's comfortable, it's secured, it's even a little bit hunkered because of the rounded case back. It does not stand 17mm above my wrist. Now, all of the finished elements of the 5-link Pilot bracelet are fantastic. It's the high polish look that you've come to expect from Breitling in the modern era, so beautifully finished but hugely visible. If this is the style you like, no one does it better than Breitling. And on this Chronomat Evolution, you get that look without the sometimes mixed messages of the Bentley co-branding that doesn't appeal to all. This is the oversized modern Breitling sports watch look and feel at its best. You can see the channels between the links on the underside, beautifully finished. There are plenty of gaps between them on the underside where the tolerances are loose enough that it won't pinch skin or pull hair. That's key to the design of every great sports watch bracelet. Now, the deployant clasp that you see here is a single swing arm design that uses a superior clamshell closure. Everything is very nicely machined, tight tolerances, it snaps shut, very crisp, and when you shut the clamshell, you've got positive lock so that this isn't going to fly open. It's not a friction fit clasp. This is the only type that you really expect on a sports watch, either a clamshell or a twin trigger release, preferably a twin trigger. Breitling does it the right way, and everything about the manufacture of the clasp is up to the standard of the bracelet and the watch itself. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about Breitling's cases because they're incredibly strong. When we do the water tests on the watches that we bring into our shop, we have to set the Breitlings to a special hard case setting because the cases themselves are incompressible, which essentially means that the water tester, which tests for water leakage by compressing and then decompressing the case and comparing one to the other, it can't do that with the Breitling because that first step, compressing the case, simply isn't possible. So kudos to Breitling for building a better box, but it's what's inside the box that counts. And I want to start with the Breitling look and now dive into the Chronomat story, because in the late 70s, when the Swiss watch industry was really hard hit by the quartz crisis, moving into a period of obsolescence, it was thought that the mechanical watch was a goner. The scion of the Breitling family, Willy Breitling, essentially the last of the family to control the company, sold to an industrialist and aviator named Ernest Schneider. And Schneider realized that if the mechanical watch, specifically Breitling's mechanical watches, were to survive, the company had to be recast in the luxury sports watch mold that Rolex was establishing as the viable model for the industry. And the Chronomat was developed. If the Navitimer had been the signature watch before, the Chronomat series and the Chronomat Evolutions, which became the company's best-selling modern watches, were the savior of Breitling. Launched in the early 80s, the Chronomat was developed in conjunction with the Italian Freccia Tricolore, essentially the Italian version of the U.S. Navy Blue Angels or the British Arrows. They were a flight demonstration elite squadron within the military, and the Chronomat was designed to be sort of a sports watch in a dual mode sense. A pilot's watch, yes, for the pilots, but also a dive watch, so it could take on the Rolex dive watches in the public sector and then uphold the image of aviation excellence that had always been associated with Breitling since really the first Breitling pilot's watches of the 1930s. So this watch sort of cuts a line between the dive watch and the pilot's watch. Like a true pilot's watch, it's highly legible. The bracelet itself is known as the pilot. It features a useful chronograph function for timing aviation maneuvers, but like a dive watch, it features 300-meter water resistance. Very sturdy, that's 1,000-foot depth, which puts it on par with something like a Submariner from Rolex. Moreover, the bezel itself, although it can be used for aviation timing purposes, is unidirectional rotating. With a very clear and crisp detent, you can use it to set to the minute hand. I'll take the loomed index. I'll set it to the minute hand right here. I'll even set the chronograph running for a little bit more eye candy. But now I can time 60 minutes from the minute hand, and I can also time a parallel separate event using the chronograph functions. Because it's unidirectional winding, because it has a constant seconds indicator at 9 o'clock, because it is water resistant to 300 meters, it is shock resistant. This is an ISO 6425 dive watch, meaning in the technical sense, it qualifies as a dive watch. It's also an outstanding aviation watch, and that versatility, along with the handsome combination of white metal and dark dial, explains why this is one of the most desirable variants of Breitling's most successful modern model line. Now, I do want to focus on that a little bit. This is a handsome example of the Chronomat Evolution. Between 2004 and 2007, when the model simply became the Chronomat, quite a few dial, metal, and bracelet variants were released. I find this example with the anthracite guilloche dial and the contrasting black sub-registers to be one of the most dramatic. You can see that sloped, dished tachometer ring, again, sporting style, highly useful for aviation purposes, especially to a third-party observer. It contrasts dramatically both in depth and color with the anthracite of the primary dial. Now, I'm going to try to get a good perspective on that in the light in my box right here, but there are contrasting light guilloche concentric rings to the dial, almost like a bullseye. You can just about see them here, inboard of the hour track. If you can't quite see them on my video images, check out our website, watchyouwant.com, where we're going to have high-res photos of this watch. But that additional element of texture with that cool gray anthracite color really makes this watch an awesome piece within the Chronomat Evolution family. And the contrast of the applied polished elements, all of the hour indices are both loomed and applied. You see matching polished high contrast chapter rings to each one of the sub-registers, as well as high contrast polished hands for the chronograph functions and the constant seconds dial at 9 o'clock. They really pop along with that applied Breitling B-wing logo at 3. It is a certified COSC Swiss chronometer, and I want to emphasize that the Breitling caliber 13 in this watch, I may as well show the case back, because I know even though it is a solid case back watch, you do want to see what the case back looks like. And as you can see, blazoned with the Breitling anchor logo and wings, mentions that it is manufactured in Switzerland and a chronometer. So let's dive back into that movement after our pause for display. Breitling caliber 13 is based on the age-old, tried-and-true, bulletproof Valjoux 7750 movement. Unidirectional automatic winding. It has a very efficient automatic winding system to top off the 42-hour power reserve. It's also the kind of movement that can go through hell and back. So if you've got a watch designed for fighter pilots and divers, you can't do much better from a functional standpoint than a 7750. Now, Breitling uses the highest grade of 7750 from ETA in chronometer specs, so it's tested over 2 weeks in 3 temperatures, 6 positions to meet a standard of -4 seconds or +6 seconds, no more, over each 24-hour period for the duration of the test. Very precise. When you pull the traditional Chronomat onion crown, I'm going to stop the chronograph right there. Look at the constant seconds at 9 o'clock. Now you'll see when I pull the crown, it hacks. As a chronometer, the ability to hack the seconds and synchronize precisely to a reference time, whether it's your mission timer as a pilot or just your buddy's watch before an amateur dive, it's a useful, practical, and meaningful function. Now, all of the classic Chronomat features are here, from the rider tabs to the screwed-on, extra tough Breitling bezel to that onion-style crown. It's a bit of a design icon, and to Breitling fans, instantly recognizable. This is the best-selling Breitling of the modern era for a reason. Between the quality of the case, the bracelet, the dial, the content, the quality of the movement, the versatility of it as a dive watch, a pilot's watch, a dress watch, or a sports watch, it's a hard combination to beat. And if that sounds good to you, you can see this Breitling Chronomat Evolution 44mm in polished stainless steel on our website, watchyouwant.com.